Hello and welcome to another CS Lightwork video. Today I'm going to be walking you guys through the bubble sort algorithm in C. Now if you guys aren't familiar with the algorithm or want an in-depth explanation on how the functionality works and how we're actually making the sorting algorithm work, please click the video at the top of the description or in the top right for a full in-depth explanation. But in this video I'm just going to be going over quickly the C functionality, the differences in Python versus what you might see in C and Java, and of course how we code it up. Now without further ado, let's get right into the video. So as you can see right now, I have a basic C code file outlined right here, and I have the bubble sort function right over here. Now let's get straight into it. In my main right now, you guys are seeing a lot, but essentially all you're looking at is the list of sample numbers. We're creating a variable with the array size, just dividing the size of the numbers by the size of the first array placement, and this will just give us, essentially for this, it will give us 6, it will give us the size of the array, and then we're just printing out the array before and after the sort. Now when we go into our function, let's look at the parameters first. We have the array being passed in, of course, and we have the array size being passed in. But if you didn't want to do this, if you didn't want the array size to be passed in, you could have it strictly just pass in the array, and this is the line of code you would need to create the array size. It's just right here. I've included that, so if you would like to look at the code in the GitHub, you feel free to. It'll be right there. Now let's get into coding the algorithm. Now a couple of key differences that you should note of. Firstly is, unlike Python, C and some other programming languages like C++ or Java, to my knowledge, do not have any function to just swap two array values. So we use something called a temporary variable, or holding an integer variable to hold a value while we're switching it. Now I'll explain further what that means, but right now we're just going to declare it up here, int, we'll call it temp. Doesn't need to be set for a value. Now let's get into that bubble sort. So firstly, what we need to do is we need to create a loop iterating through the entire array, so we can look at each element and go through the entire array. So let's just do for, let's use int x, this is arbitrary, you can use anything, and we'll start at 0, and essentially we're going to keep going until we hit the array size. And then we're going to increment it, of course, by 1, as you would expect. That right there is GitHub Autopilot. Again, amazing feature, I would highly recommend. Now once we have this for loop beginning to iterate through the entire array, we also need a second for loop, and this is because we need to look at two things. When we go for sorting it once, we need to iterate through the entire array, right? That's what we're doing. But you can't just go through it once, because when you go through it once, there still may be numbers that remain that aren't swapped. And I'll give you an example right here. Let's go through this very, very quickly. 5 and 64 won't swap. 64 and 32 will swap. 64 and 2 will swap, but now we have 32 and 2, and we just keep moving on till the end. If we stop there, it would still be out of order. So not only do you have to loop through each element, you have to loop through each element the amount of times that there are variables. So we would loop through each element here 6 times, and that's why we need that second for loop that's actually representing us going through each element in the array, while the upper loop is essentially representing how many times we loop through the entire array, if that makes sense. And again, if there's any confusions, any doubts, please let me know in the comments below. I'm more than happy to help. So now what we're going to do, we're going to have array size, but we're going to go -1. CS Lightwork, why are we approaching it this way? Well, because since the way the bubble sort works is we're comparing one value to the next, if we go all the way to the end of the array, when we go for the next, it's not like Python where it's going to go back to the first index. That's an error. So we're going to be looping till 1 minus the last value. So for here, we'd be at 3, and we can go +1 without any issues. So here's our incrementer. We're just going to use I. This could be any variable. And let's get into the actual functionality of the swap. So how can we do this? So what we need to look at is, now we're looking at the two elements. So we need to say, hey, if we're going from least to greatest, if the element in front is smaller, we need to bring that up. Or what we could say is, if the element in the first position or the position before is bigger, we need to switch them, right? So let's work it like that. Say we're doing least to greatest, we're going to look at, hey, if the value in the array we are at, and in this case our array is named array, so we're just going to go with that. If the value of the array we're at currently is bigger than the next one, which is just array index I +1, that's where the +1 comes in, we are essentially going to, and I'll just code that out for you guys. Here's what we're going to do. We need to perform a swap. Now, how can we do that? Because we don't have a function to do it in one line. Well, this is how we're going to perform it. I want you to picture this swap that we're going to execute, 64 and 32. If I say, hey, make the second index value 2 right here, 64. Now we have 64 and 64. How are we going to make this 64 and 32? Because we've already converted this to a 64, so guess what? Now 32 is lost. We have 64, 64, and it's lost, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. So before we make a swap, we have to have a variable storing either of them, so that way when we reset one, we know what to set the other two. It's essentially like a little bookmark. So let's do it like this. Let's say temp is equal to the current value we're at, okay? We'll say array I. In this case, we'll use the example we're using, 64. So now in temp we have 64. In the first index we have 64. And here we have 32. Now we can set this, which is the second index in this case, which will be my +1. I could just set array. I could set array I to the next one. And what does that mean? What are we doing here? It means we're setting 64 to 32. And contrarily, you could do 32 to 64 and vice versa, but we're just going to do it like this so far. So now what we've done here is we're holding 64 in the temp, and then we're setting 64 to now 32. So now it's 32, 34, 32, 32, and now we have the temp right up here. And guess what we're going to do now? We're going to take that 32 and set it to the temp. Now, I am going through this a little too fast, so bear with me here. If you have any questions, again, feel free to leave them down below. I'm happy to help. So that's how we implement this functionality. We're basically we're looping through the array as many times as we need to make sure we get to the last value that needs to be swapped if need be, and we perform the swap. Now let's just format this a little nicely here. Alright, so now we can get into testing this code. So I'm doing this through CMD, but you guys can use whatever compiling method you prefer. So we're just going to compile that really quick, and now we're going to run this application. And now, as you could see, we have the array before it was sorted and the array after it was sorted printing out perfectly right there. And say we wanted to change it from greatest to least, all we'd have to do is run the opposite compare. If the element before is smaller, swap them. So let's just save that and we can recompile right here. Recompile, run the application, and as you could see, now it will be least to greatest. And that pretty much concludes this video here, guys. That's just a walkthrough of the syntax and functionality in terms of C. It's a little different from what's explained a lot of the videos you'll find, because C being the language it is, it operates a little differently. As you might see in Python, while you just have one while loop to check if it's sorted or not, this one is a nested for loop. But I hope this video helps you guys understand it a little bit more. Again, if you have any questions and concerns, leave it in the comment section below. This code exactly will be posted to the GitHub repository so you guys can see it and try it out yourselves. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys take care.